Tonight on CTV News, the Prime Minister bows to public pressure and accepts more refugees. And has the time come to ban fishermen off the New Brighton Pier?
Broadcasting across Canterbury, from the CTV studio, this is First at 5.
Good evening. Ban it completely. Residents are demanding urgent action from the Christchurch City Council to ban fishing off the New Brighton Pier. The issue is being discussed right now as we go to air tonight. And one Christchurch City Councillor agrees something needs to be done. Jared McCulloch has this.
Fishing off the city's pier. Some are not fans of the recreational venture.
Fishing and people walking on the pier are not a good mix.
A local residents association is calling for a complete ban from dropping lines and nets from the structure, wanting those to pack their gear and leave.
They're taking up space that isn't allocated for fishing. They're leaving a disgusting mess, gutting fish, leaving blood, scales everywhere. People asked to move are being abused, so people are having a pretty tough time, and so they don't want to walk on the pier. So we think it's time to ban fishing from the pier.
The councillor from the east says something needs to change.
It's a mess, people are becoming upset, so we just need to take action and sort it out.
It's being discussed at a community board meeting after more and more fishers crowd the end of the pier, causing issues for the local residents.
The pier was intended to be a place for all, including for fishing. That's now snowballed. We've got other considerations from various parts of the community, different cultures using the pier, and I think there's a lot of confusion all round.
If the end of the pier did become a no-go zone for fishing, Councillor Livingston says this may cause other issues down the track, with fishers taking advantage of other areas. Further restrictions could be lined up.
It could be that we have certain times, so we say, maybe only during the week, but definitely not weekends or certain times of the year.
Whatever compromise, I guess, works, but the way that we see will work is fishing is banned. We find elsewhere for people to fish, maybe investigate putting in a second tier for fishing from the pier, so there's a clear separation.
But it may not be all bad news.
There are plenty of other places to fish. I've seen them out in my personal time in my kayak. There are plenty of places to fish.
It will only be a matter of time before the council may draw a line in the sand. Jared McCulloch, CTV News.
A police investigation is continuing after a woman died following a crash on State Highway 6 on the Haast Pass. Canterbury police were notified of the crash shortly after 10 this morning. A male occupant of the car was not seriously injured in the crash. Police are yet to confirm other details due to the remoteness of the location. Anyone considering driving over to Westland is urged to take extreme care because of the ongoing wintry conditions. Well, to the day's top story now, and Prime Minister John Key has agreed to allow more refugees into New Zealand. 750 more over the next 2.5 years. But what does that mean for us here in Canterbury? Gordon Finlater has the latest.
New Zealand will see 750 extra Syrian refugees in the next 2.5 years. 600, by the way, of special emergency intake. The decision comes after the 4-year-old war in Syria has been labelled the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. The war has caused more than 3.9 million people, including nearly 2 million children, to flee the country as refugees. The UN and governments in the region are asking for $5 billion, the largest humanitarian appeal for a single response in history. However, Jian Bashirati from the Canterbury Refugee Council says our country is not well equipped enough to take on such a huge influx of refugees.
These people, when they come into the country, they expect something else. And they come with different intentions. And I know people still in New Zealand who've been here for the past 14 to 15 years who are struggling in isolation, health issues, employment issues, education issues. So how could you advocate for something like increasing a quota when we can't actually help the people who are living in the country?
She says it's about quality, not quantity, and other countries are better equipped than New Zealand to handle the demand in resources.
That's why there is a certain number for each country to receive refugees. I have family members in Denmark, in Canada, all over Europe. They're well equipped to look after refugees. Their situations and their systems are very different to New Zealand. It's in place, they know what to expect. Here in New Zealand, it's very wishy-washy. Okay, they have systems and policies in place that is based on overseas information. Overseas information, they have different education policies, they have different healthcare systems to New Zealand. So how can you apply that to a small group here?
Canterbury has been unable to take on new refugees post-earthquake due to the housing shortage, with the North Island being the new home for those coming in to New Zealand.
Majority are resettling in Auckland, Wellington, and other Hamilton and other areas. But Christchurch, they can't handle any refugees until 2016 or 17. One family will be coming here, and they're Iraqi, and they're not part of the quota. They're through family reunification as well.
Gordon Findlater, CTV News.
And we'll discuss those developments on News Talk ZB tomorrow. A Kaiapoi man has been sentenced to community detention today on a raft of charges, including possession of a firearm, assaulting a woman and possession of methamphetamine. 38-year-old Michael Holdham faced similar charges in January this year. The repeat offender has been remanded by the courts that he undergo psychological counselling as well as drug counselling. Judge Jane Farris said that Holdham was at a high risk of reoffending without counselling. Well, still to come here on CTV News, the government is peddling ahead with a multi-million-dollar cycle network. Welcome back to CTV News, streaming live at ctv.co.nz. Well, a man who claimed that he was God at his last court appearance has been granted bail. The 20-year-old man was arrested late last month when a member of the public noticed him naked in an industrial yard at Hornby. A police dog tracked the man, who then tried to hit the dog, poke his eyes and break his legs. The man was remanded without plea to appear in court next month. The government is peddling ahead with a multi-million-dollar cycle network designed to help road users and cyclists be safe. But one group believes students cycling to school are still unsafe, saying more needs to be done. Jared McCulloch with this.
Nearly a quarter of cyclists aged between 10 and 19 are killed or injured in cycle accidents in New Zealand, and one group says more needs to be considered around cycle safety.
They say it's too complex, and what they need to do is have more than a recommended, it needs to be a mandatory passing distance.
The government is committed to providing better cycle networks around the country. Christchurch is one of them. Associate Transport Minister Craig Foss believes the government is making gains in cycle safety, rolling out new urban cycleway projects, improving infrastructure, providing programs and awareness campaigns. However, Rees wants speeds outside schools reduced to help combat it further, so students can cycle to and from their education provider safely.
In Europe, it is law. In Europe, the vulnerable road user is the one who has the rights, not the driver. A child that's walked or cycled to school is much more alert, much more aware of things than a child that's just been dropped off, hauled out of bed, given some breakfast and dropped off at school. So yeah, they'll totally benefit from that.
The group wants to see the recommendation from the Cycling Safety Panel take shape, seeing a 1 metre distance between drivers and cyclists in zones up to 60 kilometres an hour and 1.5 metres above that. The change could be a start.
I mean, it is a whole cultural thing. We do need to change the culture of how people drive here, but sharing the road with the most vulnerable, and that's children on bicycles, because they've not read the road code, they don't know the rules and regulations. That is the prime thing that we need to do. If that doesn't happen, there won't be such a huge increase in cyclists because it's still too dangerous.
But changing the law won't just allow for safety amongst road users.
It will actually cure the congestion problems, amongst other things, and just make roads generally a lot safer than they are now.
She says the changes will allow more younger students to bike to school each day. It's a big step, but the group is confident.
Whatever you do, avoid the cyclist, because the cyclist needs to have this safe route. It's bullying otherwise. You know, if you're bashing the small cyclist, it's like bullying a child.
The struggle continues to make everyone safe on our roads. Jared McCulloch, CTV News.
Consultants have completed an initial inquiry into the controversial review of the finances at the Canterbury District Health Board. Health Minister Dr Jonathan Coleman ordered the review at the request of the Finance Minister Bill English after concerns about the DHB's ongoing operating deficit in June. The CDHB refused to comment. Well, is there enough money to go around? The Canterbury Community Trust has granted over $2 million to over 100 causes across the region. But how do they pick and choose? Chelsea Daniels explains.
More than $2.8 million has been distributed to over 100 social service organisations around the region, and the Canterbury Community Trust certainly had no shortage of good causes.
And as you can imagine, post-earthquake, the complexity of social issues in Christchurch has certainly increased. There are some really serious social issues, particularly around mental health.
Canterbury Community Trust received funding requests of $5.1 million, a 6% increase from last year.
Well, there's never enough. We had requests totalling over $5 million, so there's never enough money to go around. We're one of the few philanthropic funders that fund administration as well, so we fund things like rent, operating costs, salaries, that sort of thing, that for social services organisations to basically provide their services.
The Trust conducted an independent research into Canterbury's social services sector to better equip themselves in decision-making for grants for the future.
Well, we really wanted to understand the sector and understand where the gaps were to make sure we were funding into the right places. Out of the research, we found that there's some gaps around particularly alcohol and drug treatment for support for families of people that are going through those sorts of rehabilitation and treatment. That's one particular issue. Cost of transport for rural people to be able to access social services is another real challenge.
Edwards says the sector constantly struggles with no rise in funding, but the endless growth in administration costs.
I don't think government funding itself has kept track with the needs of organisations, so you're quite right, post-earthquake rents have increased, and it's actually been really difficult for a lot of social service providers to get appropriate accommodation as well to operate from.
And Julie McCloy of Aviva couldn't agree more.
Overheads are constantly going up and a lot of funders don't want to fund that. They don't want to fund like rent and electricity, and they want to fund frontline service, which is understandable, but we can't deliver frontline service without all those other costs, and those costs do keep rising. Certainly like rent in Christchurch post-earthquake has gone up considerably.
Aviva is a specialist family violence agency that works with children, women and men who have either experienced or used family violence.
Funding is always a major challenge for us. It's really hard, especially with a subject like family violence, to get people to come on board and get behind it. So that's a real major challenge for us. Service-wise is the huge demand for our services. We really struggle to be able to afford to employ enough staff. Demand is really, really high for our services.
McCloy says that finding the right funding is crucial in order to deliver such a high demand service to Cantabrians.
And people probably don't really, which is understandable, think about that, but every business, every homeowner or renter has increased costs, and for charities it's exactly the same, and you're trying to pay all of that with a stitched together range of money that you're trying to secure.
Chelsea Daniels, CTV News.
A 72-year-old Canterbury farmer who died from falling off a roof of a barn has been named. Dairy farmer Ian Totty fell nearly 5 metres from a roof and was pronounced dead at the scene. Well, still to come here on CTV News, a wrap of the local sports and your region's weather. Welcome back to CTV News. Just a quick reminder, my special guest tonight on Lynched at 8:30 is Prime Minister John Key. We're keeping the program local, so all the local issues you want to know about 5 years on from the September quake, Prime Minister John Key will join me in the studio tonight at 8:30. Well, a driver is in Christchurch Hospital tonight with minor injuries after their car flipped at the Sockburn roundabout. It's believed the car collided with a truck carrying container, with the injured driver trapped inside their vehicle for a short time. The incident happened just before 7:30 this morning, causing major traffic hold-ups on Main South Road. And now here's Gordarama with the weekend sports action.
Starting tonight with Rugby League, and the Canterbury Bulls got their defence of the national title off to a bright start with a win on the road against the Waikawa Bay Stallions in Tauranga. After an opening round win against Counties Manukau, the Stallions were looking to continue their great start to the year, but the defending champs were too much to handle. The Bulls got off to the perfect start, with James Baxendale scoring early before Erwin Saonii stole the show with a hat-trick. Leading 28 points to 10, the Bulls allowed the Stallions a couple of late tries to see the final score go to 28 points to 20. The Bulls' next assignment will see them take on the much-fancied Akarana Falcons this weekend at AMI Stadium. Well, to motorsport now, and Saturday saw perfect conditions for the Royce Watson Memorial Hamner Rally. A field of 46 took on the fast-paced forestry roads, with National Championship regular Matt Summerfield winning all 9 stages on his way to victory. Dean Buist put in an exciting display in his Ford Escort to take the C-Class and second overall, while Dave Clearwater rounded out the podium. Mike Townsend took Class B honours in his Toyota Corolla, while it was the Class A boys that offered the most exciting competition on the day. Chris Herdman took an 8-second advantage into the final stage, with Graham Wilson hot on his tail. Wilson showed blistering pace in stage 9, not buttoning off through this jump. However, it wasn't to be enough, with Herdman taking the class win by just 5 seconds. To hockey now, and it was double success for Canterbury, with both our men and women getting wins in Wellington. After a win in round 1, the Canterbury Cats made it 2 from 2, accounting for the Wellington ladies 4 goals to 0. It was then the turn of the Cavaliers, who got their first win of the season after an opening round draw to Southern. The men's game proved more of a spectacle, with Canterbury taking it by a slim margin of 3 goals to 2. And finally tonight, Ronnie Hera has been named as the captain for Canterbury's upcoming 2020 cricket season, with long-time captain Peter Fulton retaining captaincy in the 2 longer forms of the game. Having not won a white ball title since 2006, coach Gary Stead is hoping Hera can give the side a new lease on life.
Well, look, we were looking for to make some changes. We haven't won a white ball title for 9 years now, and I guess we needed to think a little bit around who are the people that might create some of the change we were looking for. It's not a reflection of Peter Fulton at all, and him and I have been talking about a transition from captaincy for a period of time now, but I guess it's Ronnie's strongest form of the game, and we thought the leadership for him in that role was something that he would do really well.
Canterbury's first game of the summer is a 4-day match against Auckland on October 15th. Well, you're up to date with the latest in local sport. I'm Gordon Findlater for CTV Sport.
And now it's time for the region's weather.
Kia ora Canterbury. Well, today was a mostly sunny, fine day across the region. Was quite cold though, with southwesterly winds and a few gale forces for Christchurch. South Canterbury, today's high is 10 degrees there for Timaru, but cooler for you Twizel on just 6 degrees today. Heading to central Canterbury, 9 degrees was shared by Darfield and Ashburton, 8 there for Christchurch and Leeston, and 7 for Akaroa and Methven over there. Heading further north, 9 degrees was also shared today by Refugee Quota, Cheviot, Amberley, Rangiora, Oxford and New Culverden. However, Hanmer Springs, you were on 8 degrees. Over to the Alpine region, 5 degrees for Arthur's Pass and 6 for Lake Tekapo and Mount Cook. Tomorrow's weather for the major centres, sunny skies for you Timaru. We are expecting cool light winds though, just 10 degrees for your high and could be a little bit chilly for your morning start, -3 there. Flipping over to Ashburton, again a mostly fine sunny day for you. 10 degrees is your expected high, but could be quite crunchy underfoot with those frosts tomorrow morning. Christchurch, you can expect a sunny day for your Tuesday as well. 10 degrees for you and -2 for your morning there. Kaikoura, a little bit warm for your morning start on 2 degrees. Sunny skies with light, cool winds there. The rest of the Canterbury region can also expect that sunshine out and about tomorrow. Sunshine here for Waimate on 10 degrees for your high. Central Canterbury, we are seeing those 9 degrees there for Darfield and Akaroa and those light winds for everyone here. Sunny skies and a bit of cloud also for you Akaroa. Heading further north, northeasterly winds there for Cheviot. Everyone else can expect light, calm winds. 10 degrees for Hanmer Springs, Cheviot and Rangiora. And over to the Alpine region, we're also seeing sunshine here today for tomorrow as well. Lake Tekapo, 7 degrees for you. The upcoming days are also looking pretty good. Sunny skies and a few cloudy patches on Wednesday. Quite dominant high cloud in the afternoon with northerly winds also freshening up your Wednesday afternoon. Flipping over to Thursday, there could be a little bit of rain, particularly in the evening as those southerlies come through. During the day though, we're just expecting light winds and sunny skies with a bit of cloud present as well. Wednesday for the rest of the Canterbury region is also looking quite pleasant. Sunny skies with northeasterlies making their way through in the afternoon for most places. Flipping over to Thursday, again there could be a few sprinkles of rain in the evening, so if you are out and about in the evening then make sure you've got an umbrella handy, but apart from that we're expecting a fine day just with those cold southerly winds coming in later on. So the next couple of days we are expecting the weather to be quite dry and calm and settled, which is lovely. But before I go, a big shout out to Mark and Damien, who are huge supporters of CTV and watch CTV News every night. So thanks guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for another weather report.
And don't forget to join me on News Talk ZB tomorrow at 8:35. But from all of us here at CTV News, have a good night.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.